So welcome back to Learn Astrology with Mary. My name is Mary English. In this session tonight, we're going to be looking at a thing called the part of fortune. I'm just going to start by doing, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to do a little PowerPoint just to explain what it's all about. So I'm going to start sharing now. Do let me know by interrupting me if you cannot see my screen. So you should see the word Mary English in the centre. And I'm just going to open the PowerPoint, and that is this here. So the part of fortune is an incredibly interesting part of the chart. I don't actually use it that much, only because not a lot of people ask me about it, but I do use it. And before I did this webinar this evening, I thought I'd better just check the whole of my family and their parts of fortune, because I couldn't remember where they all were. And interestingly, I did my mother, my father, and all of my siblings. And within my small little, well, 7 of us in my family, we've all got our part of fortune in the 3rd house or the 4th house, which I thought was a bit interesting. So there we go. So part of fortune, an introduction to the Arabic parts. So what are the Arabic parts? Arabic parts are mathematical formulations between various points in the chart, and the part of fortune is one of them. So who invented them? No one knows exactly who invented the Arabic parts. Babylonian, Egyptian, and Greek astrologers used things called lots, points, or parts over 2,000 years ago. They were used a lot by the Arabic astronomers and were determined by complicated mathematical formulas. So even though the Arabic parts are called Arabic parts, it wasn't the Arabs that invented them. So just keep that in mind. So how did they get to us today? So a Leo chap called Abu Mashar, a professional Muslim astrologer born in 787 in Persia, which is now Afghanistan, worked in the court of the 3rd succession of the Prophet Muhammad. He wrote over 50 books on astrology, and the parts are mentioned in these books, which were then translated into Latin and imported by European crusaders. So I've got his chart there, which you won't be able to see on the PowerPoint, so I'm just going to open that up separately. And I thought it'd be interesting to sort of look at the man who made them more available, because he has a really interesting chart. Now, goodness knows how they've managed to find out when he was born. 787 is a long time ago. But there's his chart, and I'm using the whole sign method because we haven't got a time of birth. But he's a sun sign Leo. He's got moon sign Taurus. These are definites. Okay, so there's no two ways about that. The date of birth is a definite, 10th of August. He's got moon in Taurus, Mercury in Leo, Venus in Libra, Mars in Leo, Jupiter in Capricorn. Saturn is 0 degrees and 23 minutes into Pisces. Uranus in Leo as well. So he's got Sun conjunct Uranus. And I thought that was rather interesting because he was an astrologer, and Uranus is the planet that governs astrology, but it wasn't discovered then. Neptune in Virgo, it's now in the opposite sign of Pisces. This is how long ago this is. And Pluto in the sign of Capricorn as well. Now, I have stuck his part of fortune in there, but since we don't have his ascendant, I'll explain why in a minute, that part of fortune will probably be in the wrong place, but never mind. But he's definitely got this grand trine in his chart. He was a very famous astrologer back in his days. A whole Wikipedia page in him, which I was really surprised about, because normally Wikipedia doesn't cover astrologers, and they actually call him a Muslim astrologer, as if that makes it any better than being a Western astrologer. I don't know. And he's got a bit of a seesaw going on there between all this cluster of planets in Leo, and there's Saturn on the opposite side, 0 degrees to Pisces. But he's got a nice grand trine in his chart. He was a very successful astrologer. He didn't do anything other than astrology, but the fact that he wrote 50 books on it back in the day was important, because he covered the things that are called the parts, the lots, or the whatever call it, points. Okay. So there are lots of parts. Now, I've got a book on them, and there's a few hundred of them. And this is just an example of what a part in a chart could be. So you've got the part of advancement, catastrophe, cucumbers, really, children, death, disaster, decapitation. There's a lot of that going on then. Gossip, imprisonment and sorrow, lost animal, light colour. Remembering, of course, you could have lost animal, dark colour, surgery, torture, urgent wish, widowhood, and many, many more. That's just a teeny example of them. So how are they calculated? They're worked out mathematically, because these astrologers were obviously very bored. Ascendant plus a planet minus another planet. Don't worry. The calculation part for the part of fortune is ascendant plus moon minus sign. However, you have to convert each bit using 360 degrees. But don't worry, you don't have to do any of the calculations to find your part of fortune chart, as astro.com does it for you. Now, I had to add in a codicil there, that back in the day they had a part of fortune daytime one and they had a part of fortune nighttime one. So if you were born at night, so anything after, I don't know what time they were classifying night, but if you were born at night when the sun's gone down, and in the chart that would be if your sun was below the horizon, there's a different calculation for that. But for this purposes of this webinar, I'm just talking about the inverted commas normal one, which is calculated on the day. Don't fret about it. But they got really, really into their mathematics, these Arab astrologers, and did them for crazy, crazy things. Ascendant plus moon minus sun. Now, if you want to know how the calculations work, if you think that the sign of Aries, every sign of the zodiac is 30 degrees big, because we need to make a circle of 360 degrees. So if I just grab Abu's chart back up again. So there's 30 degrees to the sign of Leo, there's 30 degrees to the sign of Virgo, etc. And the way to be able to calculate it, you're going 1 to 30 and you start with Aries. So you go 1 to 30 Aries, and then 31 to 60 is Taurus, 61 to 90 is Gemini, and so on. That's how the numbers are worked out to be able to make the calculation. Trust me, I'm rubbish at mathematics, so I probably wouldn't be able to do it. I'd have to use a cheat sheet to get that ascendant plus moon minus the sun equals your part of fortune. That's the symbol. That's what it looks like. It's the next one coming up. Excuse my picture that I made there. I tried to get yeah, I didn't do a very good job of it. I tried to copy it and enlarge it and it's gone wobbly, but basically it's a circle with a cross in the center. So it's pretty easy to see in a chart. So if I just grab Abu's chart back up again, and when you've made yours, this is what you're going to need to look for. There he is, the little circle up there with a cross in the center. So it's a reasonably easy symbol to notice in your chart. So I've put into this PowerPoint, which you can have a copy of afterwards if you want to. There's the link to the YouTube video where I explain how to do it on astro.com. Now, for the interpretation, you need to look to see what house, what sign your part of fortune is in. And this will only work if you have an accurate birth time, as you need to use the ascendant degree. Well, you're not using it, but the computer's going to do it for you. And the house and the sign of the part of fortune falls into is where you wish to find fulfillment and where your inner luck or fortune is found. Now, this is not the same as the work you're going to do. This is not the same as the money that you'll get from other people, and it's not the same as your north node. The part of fortune just lets you know where you will find your fortune, and you might find it's not where you expect it to be, because in my chart, my part of fortune's in the 4th house, and you don't sort of manifest your part of fortune until you get to a little bit older. So I'm 60 now, and now I have found my fortune and I'm here talking to you from it. I'm in my home. So my job over the years has managed to morph itself so that I now work from home, and I enjoy doing that. So keeping in mind that where your part of fortune is, the house, the sign that it's in, will take into account exactly, and also then we need to start arguing about what you classify as fortune as being. So we're going to use some examples. So first up, we've got Queen Elizabeth. So this is our present Queen. Let me grab her chart once again, because otherwise you won't be able to see her. Here she is. I use her a lot on the podcast. You know all about it. She's got Capricorn ascendant. Her sun sign is Taurus in the 4th house of home and roots. Her moon is in Leo because she's a member of royalty. There has to be a bit of Leo going on there if you're royalty. And her part of fortune is in the 9th house. Then you go, Mary, what's that all about? So let me tell you. The part of fortune is in the 9th house of religion, and she's the leader of the Church of England. Now, she didn't choose that, okay, because the part of fortune isn't something you can choose like you can choose your job or you can choose your partner. It's almost as if the part of fortune chooses you. It's in the sign of Libra, needing to be fair and balanced in this area, which I don't think you can actually accuse the Queen of not being. So as far as her part of fortune goes, so she's made her fortune, her life fortune, in the 9th house. It also covers long distance travel, further education, philosophy, and blah, blah, blah. But it's manifested in her case because she's the leader of, or the highest person in the Church of England in the UK. So it was King Henry VIII, I think. Is that right? Six Wives King. I think it's King Henry VIII was the first person who was the leader of the Church of England in the UK, and the Queen has carried that one on. So the next chart example I'm going to use, and don't worry, we have questions afterwards. This is Queen Victoria. Now she's our present queen isn't directly descended from her. It's a few generations down because there were a couple of other people that were on the throne and sort of died, and another one abdicated and whatever before the queen came into place. But this is Queen Victoria. She's got a Gemini ascendant, Sun and Moon in Gemini. 3 degrees for the moon, 2 degrees for the sun, and her part of fortune is in the 1st house, also in Gemini. Now, if I take you back to what the calculation is, because you can sort of double check in your mind, whoever's got their microphone on, would you be kind enough just to mute yourself? That'd be great, thank you. So just take you back to the calculation. It's ascendant plus whatever planet it is. So let me take you to the exact calculation. Hold on. I put it the ascendant plus the moon. So Queen Victoria is a Gemini ascendant. Her moon's in Gemini minus her sun. Well, if you think about those 3 things are very together in her chart, the part of fortune's not going to be far away. Okay, so there's her ascendant, there's her moon, there's her sun. The calculation gives her part of fortune in the 1st house. So going back to houses and a quick analysis of hers. Part of fortune the 1st in the sign of Gemini, needing to communicate and be centered on the self. Now, Queen Victoria, I don't know if you know an awful lot about her, but she was a pretty good communicator. She was on the throne for a long amount of time. I think our Queen has only just pipped her to the post for the amount of years that were on the throne. She was a good communicator. Whether or not she communicated nicely, I don't know. But she was pretty good at letting people know what she did or didn't like. So she was pretty vocal in that department. And with her being a double Gemini anyway, when the sun and the moon are in the same sign, it means that you're born on a new moon. Now, I thought for the sake of argument, we wouldn't just focus on these 2 people, even though I know a lot about them and using it. I thought I'd just grab Bill Gates's chart. So I think he's number 2 or 3 in the most rich people in the world. And I thought, well, it'd be really interesting because we actually have the correct data for him. An awful lot of other rich people, like, I think his name's called Eno or Elo or some other fellow, he's the most richest man in the world. We haven't got birth times for him. But for Bill Gates, we do. It's not an exact time. It's an A rating on the Rodden scale. And his part of fortune's in the 7th house. And I thought, oh, what a strange place for that to be. So that's not his major focus in life. And if you imagine if Bill Gates hadn't got married to his missus, he might not be as successful as he is. But his fortune lies in the fact that he's married, because his part of fortune is in the 7th house. Now, I know he's married because he's got a missus and he's got a couple of kids, I think. I don't know if it's 2 or 3. He's got Sun in the 4th house. That's about home and roots. Sun's very near to Neptune. I don't know if exactly conjunct. It's Neptune's 28 degrees. It's out of sign, but they're not far apart. They're 7 degrees apart, so that's a conjunction. Cancer ascendant family is very important, and I know his family, all you've got to do is read his Wikipedia page, his family's helped him an awful lot in doing what he's done to be so rich with Microsoft. And then him and his missus, Bill, I think her name's Miranda or Melinda, I'm sure her name began with an M, Melinda. They've started the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the two of them did that together, and that's where his fortune is. So they're an altruistic organisation that they started, and they donate loads of money everywhere. So even though he's become incredibly rich, and whether or not you believe all the conspiracy theories or whatever, but just putting that to one side for 1 minute, he has given an awful lot of money to various different charities here and there. And it's the fact that his part of fortune's in the 7th, so he hasn't realised it until he got married. Okay, so if he'd never married, he wouldn't be a happy bunny as far as his part of fortune goes, but luckily he has. I can't remember what sign of the zodiac his missus is. I did check her chart. Oh, I think she's a Leo. That's right, yeah, she's a Leo. And his part of fortune's in the sign of Aquarius, which is the opposite sign. So that's just a quick skip around the part of fortune. Use it in your chart, and we shall be open to some questions in a second. And I think I've got one more to go. So let's talk about yours. So remember all the house meanings. House number 1 is the self. House number 2 is money and possessions. House number 3 is communication, siblings, short journeys. House number 4 is the home and roots. Number 5 is creativity and romance. Number 6 is health, work and routines. 7 is partner, marriage. 8 is sex, birth, reincarnation and other people's money and investments. 9 is philosophy, religion and long distance travel. 10 is career. I've not found much else other than career for the 10th. It's, as far as I can use it for, it's just career. But anyway, 11 is friendships, altruism and charity, and the 12th is the hidden self. So where your part of fortune is located is the area in your life where you will have your fortune, but you might not have realized it yet. Okay, so I hope that's helped. I hope that's a bit interesting for you. I'll come off screen share now, and we'll hit you with some questions. So stop sharing, is that right? Super. So if you've got any questions, ask me. So just shout out.
Mine is in the 6th house of health, work, and routine.
Okay, and in what sign?
In the sign of Taurus.
Okay, so give me a keyword for Taurus.
Reliable, practical, possessions.
Yeah, good. And give me 6th
Likes
house.
beautiful things. What's that?
Give me a keyword for 6th house.
Work, routine, health. What it represents, you mean?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Okay, so that's where your fortune lies. Now, it's Margaret Hone in her book, which I've got here, the Modern Textbook of Astrology, says it's about your sort of wish fulfillment, and not everybody will agree when you tell them, oh, your part of fortune's in this sign in this house. They go, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. And if you'd asked me about mine when I was in my 20s, that I'd make my fortune from home, and I was working in retailing at the time, I would have gone, no, what a lot of rubbish. So just keep it in mind that you might not have manifested where your part of fortune is. It's sort of like a whole life thing rather than individual. So in your case, in Taurus, steady, reliable, dependable. The 6th house is the house of health, routine, work, that type of stuff. That might be where your fortune lies. And again, we have to have the argument, what do you classify as fortune? Like, is fortune winning the lottery, or is fortune where you feel fulfilled? Put it that way, yeah?
Yeah, it is honestly interesting because one of my goals, or the things that I've thought that I might land into doing, is something more like teaching yoga, or doing something like for other people that would be more like health related, or helping people feel good, and self-care and stuff like that has always been something in the back of my head. So I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be something worth investigating for yourself, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Cool. Did you do any other members of your family?
No, I didn't. I could quickly, but I did not. I should look
Yeah,
at my.
because I did the whole of mine, and I just thought it was crazy weirdness that it was either the 3rd or the 4th house, and most of the family were the 4th. and 2 of them, there's 7 of us, so 2 of them were the 3rd house. So that's my father and one of my sisters, but everybody else was the 4th house, and it's just like, that's just crazy. And funnily enough, my mother did our family tree and self-published it, and we've all got copies of it and refer to it. So she went quite a long way back, and I love my family. There's not many of us left now, but yeah. But and now I sort of work from home to home and whatever. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting.
My husband's in the 12th house, which is very unlikely for him. So that's kind of hilarious. Of Capricorn, 12th house in Capricorn is on the
Oh,
cusp.
okay, so his part of fortune's in the sign of Capricorn in the 12th house. Yeah, talk me through that. Give me some keywords.
Just goal oriented, ambitious. And then the 12th house is about like the hidden self or the secrets, and he's not very deep. So I guess I'm trying to understand how that would be his fortune, because he doesn't seem to have, he's a Taurus, his sun sign is Taurus, and his whole chart is Earth. So he's very Earth, very stable, practical, logical, not a feeler. So it's interesting that his is in the 12th house, because that would say that he would be
What's his ascendant?
Aquarius. Oh, Aquarius.
Oh, okay, Aquarius. But then the part of fortune's in the 12th in Capricorn, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So that's a weirdness then, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll have to see, because I mean you're only halfway through your life, you know. Because I sort of think the part of fortune isn't something that it's be pointless telling somebody really young what their part of fortune is. Do you know what I mean? Because it might not be where they go at all. And actually, in fact, people when they're sort of in their 20s, 30s, 40s are more interested in their North Node, because they're looking for their spiritual purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. And have you got any kids?
2 kids. Yeah, I can look at theirs too. Yeah, it's
Yeah, go.
Theirs are so young now. I mean, mine are so young. Oh God. Because my 6-year-old, his is in the 3rd house, Virgo, which is, he's also a sun Virgo.
Okay, and how far away is his part of fortune from his sun sign?
So his sun is at 25 degrees Virgo, and then Virgo's on the cusp of the house, but his actual par fortune is in Libra at 8 degrees.
And what's his moon sign?
Cancer.
Yeah, because it's the maths between the ascendant, the sun, and the moon is how you get to it. But it's in the sign of Libra in the 3rd house, yeah?
In the 3rd house. But does that matter that Virgo's on the cusp of the house, or it would still be in Libra? Yeah, it would still be in Libra. So I think I did that wrong actually before. Yeah, so his is in Libra in the 3rd house.
Okay, so talk me through 3rd house in Libra.
Communication and siblings, short trips. And Libra is very finding the pleasures of life and justice and harmony.
Yeah, because Queen Elizabeth I has hers in Libra in the 9th. So it's about being fair and balanced whilst also leading the whole of the Church of England type of thing. But yeah, 3rd house is also about teaching as well, because the 2 houses of knowledge are the 3rd and the 9th. So the 9th house is sort of, you're going to compare the two, the 3rd house is what we probably can teach ourselves and what we learn at school, and the 9th house is when we go to university and we do further studies, if you're going to make a difference between those 2 houses. But it is, yeah, siblings, yeah, short journeys, all of that.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. You'll see how it pans out as he gets older. And then your other child?
And then Braden's 3.5, and his is in the 11th house of Aries.
11. Okay, talk me through it.
So that's just human, like the 11th house is about like friends and larger social groups, right? Humanity in its entirety, and Aries is the sign of action and just leadership, confidence. So maybe he's somebody who could make a change.
Yeah.
Would that be?
Yeah, and with roots as well, because the 11th house is very much the altruistic house. It's
Yeah.
humanitarian, and
Hmm.
I'm so enjoying Jupiter and Saturn being in the sign of Aquarius.
Yeah.
I'm really into that.
That's great. Yeah, it's funny. My family's so different. They're all different. They're all different.
Yeah, they're all different. It's weird. Yeah, in mine, well, it was just for some crazy reason. Actually, everybody except my mother have got Sun and Moon square. So my
Oh, yeah.
father, yeah, everybody in my my mother and my older sister don't have the Sun and the Moon square, but everybody else does. So that comes into the equation as well. So you've got the same because whatever the maths is between it will be the same as when it comes to where the part of fortune's located. Those aspects between those things that you've got that you make the maths with comes into it. So if it's all different in the family, then the part of fortune will be in different places as well.
Yeah,
But
and
it
Mary, I
takes
messed
everything the
up. My
same.
husband
Yeah.
is actually, I was looking at the cusp of the house, not where the actual, where it was. My husband's is actually in Aquarius in the 11th house, which is interesting because that's also where his south node is. And
Well,
you would think that his south node would be, they say that's like your past life or something that's like
yeah.
easy. It's not as much the thing that you're striving to be. So it's interesting that his power fortune is where his south node is. Because it
Wow.
kind of contradicts each other, right? A little bit.
Yes, but the North Node is where we need to go. But the part of fortune is just nothing that we can consciously make a difference to. There is nothing you can do to change a part of fortune, but you can change everything else in your chart or modify it or make it different. The Queen cannot not be the head of the Church of England. She just inherited it, so to speak. There's nothing
Right.
she can do about it. Yeah, so that's a sort of a fixed and a given. But they're funny old things. All the Arabic parts. There's so many. The list is enormous. I can't remember the list is now. But yeah, there's loads of them. But they'll all be the ascendant minus and plus a planet, minus and plus a planet to get to the wherever it is. Um, I think one of them was something weird like you can imagine that people lived and shopped in little sort of I don't know what you call them now, marketplaces, and there's one for something about peanuts, or not peanuts, but something that you find in a marketplace. Obviously, if you lost it, you want to go looking for it, or where you'd make your money with it, or something. But yeah, I think the scary ones though was when I saw decapitation. I thought, oh my goodness, I don't think I'd want to find that in someone's chart.
Yeah.
Not going to do that with too many clients, but yeah. Thank you, Mary. That's great.
Thank you.
Dee, did you find yours? You said it was Gemini.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dee. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. My POV is 26, 24, fourth house, Gemini.
Okay, so what sun sign are you?
Oh, well, my sun sign is 29, 57 Libra.
Hmm. And your ascendant.
I think that's like the same, like 20, I want to say 20, I'm not looking at my chart, 26 Pisces. It's
Okay.
mutable.
Okay, mutable. And then your moon sign.
Oh, that's 29, 59 Capricorn.
Okay, that's a bit of a severe moon for you, isn't it? So your sun and your moon are square to each other, and
Yeah.
you've got your part of fortune in the fourth house in the sign of Gemini. So tell me a couple of keywords for Gemini.
Oh, mental, analytic, maybe talkative, but maybe not necessarily focused.
Yeah, mutable. Uh-huh. And then fourth house.
Oh, let me see. Your inheritance, your roots, what grounds you, and what supports you in terms of the past, or maybe what you've gotten genetically or culturally.
Mm. And what are your circumstances at the moment? Can you relate at all to your part of fortune being in your fourth?
I tend to have good luck with housing.
Okay.
Overall, yeah, and except for when I contacted you with that horary question back
Mm,
last spring,
mm,
it was a COVID-related circumstance, and I wasn't where I wanted to be. The South is not my preferred location in the U.S.
mhm.
So basically, I'm in California now. much happier being on the West Coast and the Southeast, which was really quite different and not necessarily something I felt as at home with.
Right. Okay. And so the location you're at now, is that a happier thing for you?
Oh, it's such an improvement. It's a 300% better in terms of the living situation and the atmosphere, and locationally, I think it works a lot better. I had what do you call it? Seventh house Saturn
Yeah.
in Little Rock. That was no fun.
That was seventh house Saturn that did what? Sorry?
It was no fun. So
No
so if
fun.
I
Right.
yeah, it was not fun. It was restrictive
Got you. Uh-huh.
socially. So
Yeah, so you'll be a lucky. Well, actually, to come to think of it for myself, as far as house sales go, every time, touch wood, every time I've sold house and moved, I think I've only done it property wise about 4 times, but I've moved when I rented. I have profited from each move that I've made and each house sale I've had. So maybe that comes into. I hadn't thought about that as being a fourth house thing. That probably is, isn't it? But you're not a realtor though, are you?
I'm sorry.
You're not a realtor, are you?
I'm not even sure what that is.
Oh, somebody that buys and sells houses? No.
Oh, a realtor. Oh, sorry.
Realtor. Sorry, I
With
don't know
the
how to
accent.
pronounce it. I can only see it written.
No. I'm actually I'm an artist, or would be if I had everything working the way I want to. It's specifically tied in with astrology, symbolic portraits based on the birth chart and handwriting analysis. At least this would be ideal were I to get that
Oh,
off the ground. Still working on it.
okay. And have you done some work already for clients?
I have people who are interested, very interested, but I move around a lot. I really move around a tremendous amount. I mean, it's very rare for me to be in one place for more than 3 years. So it's that kind of has limited. I mean, I do basically it was all like career related. I
Mhm.
basically want to, do something that way. But my career has kind of changed since COVID. I'm not
Okay.
employed in education anymore. So basically trying to this was kind of like a avocation that I want to turn into a vocation, if you will.
Okay. Yeah. But does it matter about moving house if you're working from home? Would you be producing this art from where you live, or would you have to go out
Definitely.
to a studio?
No, I was doing a studio thing in Seattle before COVID,
Hmm.
and that worked fine, but my focus was a little bit different. I had the idea, but I wasn't really focused on it. I was doing more commercially oriented pieces, but now I really want to push for this one particular idea that I just told you about, because
Hmm.
it's interesting to me and challenging because I have to create an entire visual vocabulary. But I listened to your podcast quite a bit, and you mentioned Anthony Lewis's book.
Yes.
Yes, and that turned out to be a great resource. I can't tell you how detailed or specific he gets, but I'm sure after you've read the book, it's been a wealth of information. And I think after I do that, maybe after I develop the vocabulary that satisfies me, then I
Mm.
want to probably do a series on goddesses, maybe the more obscure goddesses, not the ones that are widely known, but the ones that are under celebrated and not recognized.
Yes, like Branwan, that's a
At
Celtic
least,
goddess. Yeah,
at least, yes.
she's a bit low on the scale, but I think she's lovely. The thing about working from home, my husband's now retired and he does art and stuff, but he does that from home as well, and he gets commissions. And all you need is a website. I mean, I don't want to go into great detail about how you better manifest this thing for yourself, but do keep in mind that it doesn't matter where you're located anymore. Since the internet was invented, you can be anywhere, apart from the fact when you're creating works of art, you have to stick them in the post to someone, and if they're rather big, it can get a bit expensive to
Mm.
wrap it up and that type of thing. Or I don't know. Sometimes I've seen people travel. For my husband, they've travelled across the country to come and pick up a pet portrait or whatever. So don't write off what you want to do. Have you read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
No, like I said, my life tends to have a lot of ups and downs, a lot of curves, and the books that I've actually I completed a certificate in fine art because that kind of helps you get your foot in the door in terms of gallery representation. But this was before COVID, so because I have degrees, I have several degrees, but not in art because I felt like that was more of a fantasy than, a good vocational choice. I was looking for something solid, kind of like a Capricorn solid thing. Instead of, I had a friend who graduated from, I lived in San Francisco for a while. I had a friend who graduated from the Art Institute, and he ended up selling jewelry at a jewelry store after he got a bachelor's in painting. So I never felt that was a really good career choice in terms of having some solid foundation. So I put it off till the very end, which it does seem like the very end for me in many ways in terms of my at least employment history. I'm no longer working, I'm retired.
Yeah, but the artist way is about reclaiming your inner creativity and allowing it the space to
Love
do
that.
what it needs to do. It's the most wonderful book. It's almost like a 12-step program because I think there's 12 chapters in it. But I definitely recommend it. She's a Pisces, I think she's got Moon in Scorpio, but don't quote me on that. It might be Moon in Capricorn. But the book is called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. And really, I really recommend it to anybody that's creative in any description. So that's art, music, writing, blah, blah, blah. And she's all over the place. She's been going for years, absolutely years. She was a film director or something herself. But the book explains that if you have this creative spark, how do you go about it? How do you nurture it? Because a lot of people, and I've got a sister who's an artist, well, was an artist, and she became a painter and decorator because my mother drummed it into her. She'd never make a living as a painter, as an artist. So she became a painter and decorator, and only now in her 50s is she allowing her artistic self expression again, because she said she wouldn't be able to make a living from it. But if you tell yourself you'll never make a living from it, you won't make a living from it because you'll believe what you tell yourself. So, you can go around in circles with that, but the artist way is brilliant. And I think your idea is fantastic. Go for it. Don't hold back. Get a website, stick your pictures up there and see where it goes. You won't know until you try. And have you got Neptune going over your ascendant at the moment with that Pisces ascendant?
Is it? I know it's conjunct my sun, like pretty close. Natal.
Neptune.
Yeah,
yeah, but transiting, if you've got a Pisces ascendant, then Neptune will be
that's
going
right.
over your ascendant. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So utilize that a bit. Neptune's going to enjoy its journey. What degree is your ascendant?
I think it's 26.
Yeah, Neptune's not that far yet. It's about 3/4 through. Yeah, but it'll probably be conjuncted. It won't be far off. So yeah, allow that Neptune.
It's a slow-moving planet. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But, it's a fantasy. One has to, I really like the idea of the book. I'm probably going to get that today. The Artist's Way, right? By Julia Cameron.
Julia Cameron. Julia, Julia, Cameron, Cameron. Don't get all the other books in this series, the Julia Cameron Journal or the Artist's Way. It came out a long time ago, so get a second-hand copy. I think it's been out about 15 years. But get the original version of it, just the Artist's Way. It's on Amazon, it's all over the place. You can get a second-hand copy for a few dollars. But it's the most wonderful, wonderful book ever. And she's still going, she's still coaching, she's on Facebook, she's on YouTube, and she teaches one-on-one with people how to allow your creative self out. It's not about teaching you to paint. That's something different altogether. It's not teaching you how to write a book. It's teaching about your creative self. I've read it and I've written, 16, 17 books. It's brilliant. Definitely recommend it.
Fantastic. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Amanda, are you with us? I think your microphone's turned off. Hello, darling. How are you? Did you find out where your conversation is?
I think I did, but I did it through a website rather than work it out because I missed that part of your talk.
Okay.
Because I got on late, but I think it's Cancer in 8th house. And
I've got your data in my account, haven't I?
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Right. Let me double check. So just hold on a second. So what house did you think it was in?
In the 8th house.
Let's have a look.
Oh, it could be. Yeah, I think it's 8th house.
Let me see. I'm just opening up astro.com because I've got you in there, and then we can quickly have a look and see how that's in. Because it's very easy to fight your part of fortune. It's like, no, that's not me. I never want to do it. It's not going to happen. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's quite funny, really. Here we go. So let's stick yours in. Equal house, and we're adding. It's called Pars Fortunae is the Latin one for it, but I just call it part of fortune. That's easier. You've got it, yes, in the 8th house in the sign of Cancer. Okay, talk me through that.
So 8th house is other people's money.
Yes.
And Cancer being all about family and nurturing and that kind of thing. So how does that relate?
Okay, so the 8th house is other people's money in quite a few different ways. It can be investments, it can be inheritance. I've got 2, 3, my son, my husband, and 2 people I know of. So my best friend have all got son in the 8th, and 2 of the people I know with son in the 8th work in investments. That's son in the 8th, so they work for companies investing other people's money. So that's what can happen in the 8th house. But the 8th house is such a deep house. It's like the 12th. It's hidden. So you could find your fortune via your family, maybe from inheritance. I don't know, you've got some ancient grandma somewhere who's worth a couple of bob, and then she pops it and gives you her 16-bedroom mansion, you know.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
That
Well,
type of thing.
like I said to you yesterday, that has not happened. So we'll see. That's a waiting game now.
Exactly, yeah. Because as I say, there's no way of manifesting your part of fortune. It isn't something that you can actively work on. The North Node is something we can do something about. We can work towards this. We can learn the lessons from the South Node, and we can aim towards the North Node. But the part of fortune, there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. It's just there. It's just giving us a little light bulb about where our fortune might be made. And it isn't always financial, but if it falls in a financial house, which is the 2nd house, and the 8th house, then that could actually be converted into money in some way. Yeah. But yeah, family investments, and as you say, we talked about it, that you might find that that's investment that you make grows, you know, so it's something to keep in mind. And again, you also need to think about, what do you classify fortune as being? So there's a rhetorical question. What words would you use for fortune? If I said, oh, the word fortune, what would come to your mind?
For me personally, it's family, isn't it? And health. They're my 2 fortunes personally.
Well, that's interesting because yours is in the sign of Cancer, which is all to do with the family, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because the is sign and house. I mean, obviously, I'm going to have to make a codicil here for anybody who's using the Placidus system. It might turn up in a completely different house, but I don't teach Placidus, so I'm going to be going with equal house. And 8th house is also sex, birth, and reincarnation. So it could be sort of past life type of stuff, or mediumship. I was just trying to think of any mediums. Oh, I do know a few mediums that have got planets in the 8th or sun in the 8th. So that comes into it too. But yeah, you'll have to see where it goes. But it's sort of like a little thing that you just keep in your chart and keep a mind of it, and then see how it manifests in some way. But it isn't something that you can actively make a difference to. What will happen though is, which I should have mentioned earlier, that there'll be transits going past it. So yours is in the sign of Cancer. So when the sun goes into Cancer, I don't know, you buy a lottery ticket or whatever, and then ping, maybe your part of fortune gets activated in some way, who knows. But there will be the moon going past it every month, the sun will go past it the moon will go past it once a month, the sun will go past there once a year. Jupiter, Saturn, you know, whatever, you go back in your chart maybe and see what happened last time some major planet transited your part of fortune. So that I'm saying to everybody listening, have a look, see if there's anything that's ever activated your part of fortune or transited it. Can you sort of think, oh, you know, that's when such and such happened for me. I say mine's in the 4th house in the sign of Scorpio, even though the majority of my 4th house is in the sign of Sagittarius. But it's in my 4th. And as I was saying to Dee earlier, I've moved house a lot, sold a few houses, and this is my 4th place, and each house that I've bought, tick books, touch wood, luckily made a profit on it. But 8th house is an interesting house to have your part of fortune in. Keep me posted.
I will. Thank you for that. It's really helpful.
You're welcome. So who else have we got here with us this evening? That's everybody. So anybody else got any further questions? It doesn't necessarily have to relate to the part of fortune, but if you've got a burning astrological question you want to hit me, because we've got about another 5 or 6 minutes, then do shout out if anybody else has got anything you'd like to know about.
Mary, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. Who's that?
Amanda.
Amanda, go.
Just a quick one. I should have asked you yesterday. So when you mentioned in my, I think it was 12th house that I had my Saturn, and
Yes.
you mentioned my childhood not having my father around.
Yes.
I looked at my son's chart and he had the same thing. But does that necessarily correlate?
Doesn't have to. I mean,
Okay.
his dad's definitely around at the moment.
Yeah,
isn't
100%. Full on.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just that I was just telling you the example of what happened to you and what happened to my son, that his dad wasn't around. Yeah, it doesn't mean to say that it's actually going to manifest as that. It's just a possibility. So if that does happen, then that would be the astrological reason why. Yeah, does that make sense?
I understand. Yeah.
Is his Saturn conjunct his ascendant?
Oh, let me check that.
How many degrees away is it? I don't know if I did his chart. Did I do your kiddies? Let me have a look. Hold on. You have a look and let me know. Oh, I've got him there, I think.
You'll have to ignore the noise in the background.
Yeah, don't worry. I think it's quite early. It's not really into the 12th house. I think it's on, I was going to say cusp. That's going to make me cross. It's at the beginning of his 12th house. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in my son's case and in your case, it's much further into the house. It's not at the beginning of it.
Oh, okay. That's cleared
Yeah.
that. Kind of put my mind at a bit. I think.
Yeah,
oh, where's he going?
Exactly. I'd be worried about that too. No, it's right at the beginning of it. I'm just looking on my laptop, and my laptop's not 100% accurate, but I can see that it's right at the beginning of the 12th house rather than being further into it. So it's not a big issue to it.
Okay, thank you so much. Calmed
You're
my nerves.
I think I'll be glad you're worried about that as well.
I was.
Anybody else got any questions before we go?
Hi, Mary. Yeah, I did just have a question.
Go.
Do the transits affect parts like they do the other planets that we have?
Yeah, so the part isn't a planet. We have to remember it's the mathematical jiggery pokery that the Arabs really love doing, but the Egyptians or the Babylonians or somebody invented. But when you get a transit to it, an exact conjunction to it, you need to pay attention to what might be happening, because that might be how it expresses itself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So with mine being in the 4th house in the sign of Taurus, Scorpio, Sagittarius, at some point, I can't remember when, but Pluto would have been exactly conjunct to it, because Pluto went through the sign of Scorpio. It's now in the sign of Capricorn, because I'm 60 years, so I've had quite a few aspects to my part of fortune. Yeah, so I'd need to have a look and see, is that when I was selling a house, which, come to think of it, I probably was. So in your case, remind me again, what house is yours in?
With the diurnal system, it's in the 9th house in Virgo.
And that's is that where Astro.com turned it up?
Yeah, that's what Astro.com did for the day one.
Yeah, day one. Don't ask me about how to do the night one. I'll get a mathematical head sweat. But okay. So you got it in the 9th house in the sign of Virgo. So give me 9th house. What's that all about?
Long distance travel, adventure, further education, learning.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well done. And Virgo?
Being neat and tidy.
It isn't. Do you know, I can't tell the amount of Virgos I know that aren't neat and tidy. I had a brother who was a Virgo. He was the messiest person alive. His house, he was an antique book dealer, and his house was full of books. You could literally not walk up the stairs because there was a pile of books going up the stairs, yeah? Mm-hmm. But ask him where such and such a book was, he'd be able to walk immediately to where the pile was and get it for you. So it's about categorization. It's not about neat and tidy, but it's about the Virgo knows, it's about purity. It's about, what's another favourite word of Virgos, like perfect. That's their favourite word. Yeah, it's about perfection. So if there's some, but if you ask a Virgo how are they and did they enjoy something, they say it's perfect. Oh, that's alarm bells. It's about perfection. But it's not necessarily about tidiness. There's a lot of untidy Virgos out there, but they will know specifics. So if a Virgo says, I like cheese at such and such a temperature, trust me, don't give them cheese at another temperature. You know, if they like their cake made a certain way or their coffee in a certain way and you do it different, you'll be, not doing them any good. So Virgo's about purity, and health as well comes into it, all in the 9th house. And so have you had, well, you must have had at some point some transits past there?
I haven't really checked until today, so I haven't really had a look at what would have transited it.
Okay, so
obviously I would have done.
Yeah, there would have been. Obviously, the sun's going to go past there, but you were born when Pluto was in the sign of
Scorpio.
Okay, so that won't have transited it, and then Neptune was in the sign of.
Actually, I'm not sure anything major would have done, because I've got everything. The Neptune and Uranus were in Capricorn, and they're not there yet.
Yeah.
So the outer planets, I don't think would have transited it.
Okay, and what sign was your Saturn in when you were born?
Capricorn.
Yeah, forget that. And then Jupiter?
That's actually next to it in Leo in the 9th house still.
Yeah, so Jupiter takes 1 year to transit.
Yeah.
So Jupiter might have conjuncted your part of fortune when you were quite young, 1 or 2 years old. So I don't know, maybe you had a granny who decided to give you a whole load of dosh when you were 2, or bought you a big birthday present or something, who knows. Or maybe, you'd have to go back and have a look, because the outer planets, Jupiter spends a year in each sign and Saturn spends 2 years. So it'll take a while for anything to chug up to. I was born when Pluto was in the sign of Virgo, and I think my Uranus is in Leo. So I've already got something that happens in Virgo, but in your case, because you've got it in the 9th in the sign of Virgo, it's going to take a bit of time for something to actually conjunct it. There'll be things in opposition, so Neptune will be opposite it right now. So is Neptune going through your 3rd or 4th?
In my natal chart.
Transit.
Compared
to your natal.
I should know this, but I'm not.
Is your ascendant Sag, or am I remembering wrong?
Yeah, it's Sagittarius,
Yeah, so Neptune will be transiting either your 3rd house, your 4th house, thereabouts. So it'll be sort of opposite your part of fortune. Yeah. Whether or not that'd activate it, I doubt it. The only things I've ever seen is when it's exactly conjunct it.
Okay. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah, no, it's useful to know. Yeah.
They're all interesting things. I mean, there's more than one part of fortune. I've only covered one this evening. There's a hell of a lot of them. There's about 100 or so. And in that book that Dee mentioned, so I'll just grab it again, which is Orrery Astrology, Plain and Simple by Anthony Lewis. And he's spelling Anthony Anthony, and Lewis is Louis. In there, he's got all the part of fortunes and all the maths associated with it. And you look at that, and it's like, I lose the will to live. I can't stand long lists. I don't have enough Virgo in my chart. He's a Virgo himself, and it's the most wonderful, wonderful book. But something like, I don't know, I was talking about decapitation earlier, and that's the point of origin in the 8th house, cusp plus Mars minus the moon, but everything else is the ascendant. So I don't know where we go. Friends is ascendant plus the moon minus Uranus, because Uranus governs Friends. I mean, some of them are more modern because Uranus wasn't around then, obviously, so there's some modern ones that are in there. But disappointment, I thought, was lovely. Ascendant plus Mars minus Neptune. But again, Neptune wasn't discovered then. Let's think. So cutting and surgery is ascendant plus Saturn minus Mars. Those are other Arabic parts. And they use them mostly in the Orrery astrology, so it's not necessarily something that needs to be explored in someone's birth chart. It's an interesting thing to know, but it's more used for orrery astrology because you want to see whether or not the question that you've asked, where's it going to be beneficial, and the part of fortune will show that's the question that you've asked, you know, where might be the fortune to this particular question. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sorry, Mary, I've got to go.
You go,
thank
darling.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
Yeah. See you later. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. So thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. And I'll stop the recording in a second. We can all say goodbye. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, it's www.maryenglish.com, maryenglish.co.uk, or UK Astrologer. Thank you.